Hello, this is Chris, and we are talking about tenant improvement today. So what exactly is tenant improvement, or TI? And basically, tenant improvement, as it says in the name, is going to be improvement. And typically you'll sometimes hear this referred to as leasehold improvements, but it's going to be improvements to the leased space. And it's going to be an important part of a negotiation whenever you're moving into a commercial property. So let's talk about what kinds of things should fall under the landlord responsibility for tenant improvement, what's appropriate to discuss in your negotiations, and what we typically don't see included. So if it's going to be a yes, then we're going to look for a couple of characteristics in order for it to be typically under the landlord's umbrella of what they would consider for tenant improvement. So one thing is that it should be durable, which means that it's going to stay with that leased space even after a given tenant leaves, and it's going to be something that will have benefit to that space for over 1 year period of time. It's also going to be within that leased space. So what's appropriate would not include something like CAM or common area maintenance type issues, and we'll talk about CAM in another video. And then very commonly, you're going to see that the tenant improvements should not just last, but last and benefit future tenants. So what kinds of examples would fall under that yes category? So let's take a look, and we'll look at something here that fits these characteristics. So something like flooring. We might say for flooring that if you wanted new flooring, if you wanted to, whether it's replacing a carpet or maybe upgrading from carpet to tile or something along those lines. So is that durable? Yes, that would last probably longer than that given tenants maybe 1 year or even 3 year lease, depending on the type of flooring, or 5 year lease or 10-year lease, depending on what you're adding. Is that within the leased space? Sure. So whether you're talking, let's say, office or retail, there are certainly office buildings where if you walk in different offices, you see different kinds of flooring within each space, right? So that could be something within the leased space that is not part of the common area. And could that benefit future tenants? Sure. It has the possibility of doing that. So if you change out, let's say, a particular office or retail space that had carpeting and you upgrade it to, let's say, a luxury vinyl version of a wood flooring or maybe, some type of tile, then could that benefit future tenants even after a given lease is up? Sure. So flooring would be appropriate and would be worth discussing as part of your negotiations for tenant improvement in an office or retail type of lease. Now let's talk about what could maybe move that flooring discussion. What would maybe make that a no? Because it could be a no. We're thinking it's a yes, and it seems reasonable in this conversation, but what kind of situation could arise where maybe the flooring is not something that is going to meet these standards of something durable, something within the space, and something that can benefit future tenants? And so an example of something like that might be as far as benefiting future tenants. So let's say you asked a landlord when you were getting ready to move into a retail space, and you said, "Oh, I'd love an upgrade in the flooring. Is that something you'd be willing to include in the tenant improvements for me to go ahead and sign this lease?" And the landlord said, "Sure, what are you thinking?" And you said, "Well, I would love brand new marble flooring, and within that marble, I would like my company logo to be included. So we're going to have a special type of dyed marble of a particular color that's going to include my company logo." Well, now, all of a sudden, that's turning this benefit future tenants checkmark into an X. And so if you said, for example, flooring with the company logo in it, that maybe would fall outside the realm of typical tenant improvement and not be something that a landlord would be willing to invest in, because that's not going to improve the value of the property. So that would be only an improvement for the current tenant, but it wouldn't benefit the landlord and it wouldn't benefit future tenants, and therefore that would probably fall outside the realm of a typical tenant improvement discussion. So as far as tenant improvement goes, there's no set amount for what that dollar value should be as far as an allowance is concerned. You can see sometimes a tenant improvement allowance, or sometimes you'll see that abbreviated as TIA, tenant improvement allowance, and that can be a wide range. Sometimes you'll just see a couple dollars per square foot. Sometimes you'll see $20 per square foot, $40 per square foot. It can range quite widely, and a lot of that depends on the quality of the property overall. So for example, if there's a property that has had maybe a long-term tenant in place, it's an older building, and it needs a little bit of improvement just as a baseline, then you can maybe expect that the landlord would be more willing to invest a few more dollars per square foot to try to bring it up to date for a new tenant. Now, if there's a brand new property and they've already put money into giving it, let's say, really nice flooring, it has, like a really fresh build out, it's, very modern, it meets, current standards, it's a Class A type of building, are they going to look to spend additional money for a new tenant on top of what they've already put into a property like that? Less likely. So you might see a smaller dollar amount allotted towards TIA. So think of TIA as a wide range of values per square foot. You might see something all the way up to $50 per square foot. It's not unheard of, but that range of value that you're going to have in terms of what that tenant improvement allowance looks like is going to really depend on the property and a lot of times the length of the lease. So again, when it comes to tenant improvement, this should be something that factors into negotiations and the kinds of conversations that you want to have. If you're asking for tenant improvement as the tenant, then you want to make sure to try to stick with this short list of characteristics here that make that a fair discussion to have with a landlord, because if they're going to invest some money, you want it to be something that offers benefit both to you as the tenant for those improvements and then benefit to the landlord as well by improving the quality of the building itself. And you want to shy away from anything that's specific to your business, or maybe something that's not durable, something that's not going to stay in the space after you leave. I've worked with clients before where for TI, they're asking for things like, oh, we want really nice office chairs for our office space. Well, that's going to be a cost for the tenant to come out of pocket for. That's not something that a landlord should invest in on behalf of a tenant, because that's not going to stay with the space. Or let's say really nice artwork that's going to hang on the walls, but that a tenant is going to take with them when they leave. So those types of things we definitely want to leave out of the negotiations. And as a landlord, if somebody is asking for something that is a durable feature of the property within the leasable space and something that can benefit future tenants, then we want to potentially offer some kind of concessions, whether it's a dollar amount for making those improvements, or if landlords don't want to come out of pocket for the TI for a given tenant, there are other ways to offer concessions for a tenant to do those improvements on their own, and that can be in the form of rent abatement and a few other options which we'll talk about in our other videos. So that's a quick intro to tenant improvement. Thanks for watching.